Neqotkuk N'Tetli Mikwi Tahasoltipen. Too big we are remembering.
I'm Mariah Sockabasin and I have a diploma in fashion design. I work for the community that I'm born and raised in Neqotkuk First Nation, and I work in sport and rec for the Topic Youth Center. So I do a lot of coaching and a lot of sports programs, and when I'm not doing that, I'm usually in my studio working here or sewing at my table or working on inventory for an event, or actually right now I'm working on a corset for a fashion show in Toronto. I graduated from the NBCCD in Fredericton with a diploma in fashion design, so that's a 3-year course in itself. And with that, I can tailor clothes to fit any specific body type, and I'm trained in corsetting, tailoring, and I also took a lot of different courses while I was there, like jewelry, painting, drawing. So I really enjoy all different types of mediums when it comes to my work. I like to say I'm more of like a fashion artist because I do a lot of like screen printing and painting, and lately I've been really into making signs, and just whatever floats my boat at that moment is what I usually do. As I got older and I was going to graduate from high school, I didn't want to go to school right away because I wasn't sure what I wanted to pursue, and I didn't want to waste my time or money. So after high school, I went a year abroad to Brazil, and I studied the language and the culture there. And that really made me, I've always loved fashion, but the fashion in Brazil is just so beautiful and it's different. And so when I came back, I knew I wanted to learn how to make my own clothing. And it wasn't so much something I was thinking about as a career and money making. It was more of a skill that I wanted to obtain. And I grew up with my Mimi Hazel, always making leather regalia. And so that is sort of a comfort to me still. I work with leather regalia quite often, and I have all of her old leather and her things that I use when I'm making art. So the kind of love for it was when I was younger, and I would be under her table playing with the scrap leather. And then so as an adult, I want to change that into like not so full leather dresses because that's so hot and the climate's changing and we can't, in the summertime it's just way too much. So I'm trying to make leather regalia in a new kind of way, I guess like a newer generation. My other Mimi as well, on my mother's side, she does sewing. She's done sewing all her life. She doesn't do much leather work anymore, but her whole basement is just full of like old sewing stuff. And as a kid, I wouldn't be able to touch anything, but I'd always go down there and poke around, and that was always really interesting to me too. My process in creating is just really organic. I'll see like a piece of leather and I'll, play with the fabric. I'll see what it inspires me to make it into. And every piece of leather is different, and every piece of fabric will make you feel a different way. Or, some things will be skirts and some things will be vests, and some things will be half a project and never be finished. But mostly my process in creating is just very organic, and I just let it flow. When you find a piece, it kind of tells you what it wants to be. Mm-hmm. And then you're kind of like shaping it into that. My inspiration, I pull from nature and people. Like humans to me are very interesting. That's really inspiring to me. But also when I don't feel like inspired, I usually just go out in nature and don't put any pressure on myself, just kind of ground myself in nature because we are a part of nature ourselves. So I really just like to go out snowshoeing, make a fire, collect wood. I made a trail in the back of my house here that leads up to my sister's house, and that's just something the kids and I like to do on our days off. And just to be out in nature is just really inspiring to me. I know it sounds really cliche, but music, I always have to have music going. The way my brain works, it needs noise to shut out my thoughts. Yeah. So music is really good for that. And it doesn't matter what mood you're in, there's always something to listen to. I don't know how to say this, but it's called like bad beat energy. Okay. That's like a playlist I like to listen to, and it gets me all pumped up, and it definitely influences the clothes I make too. I feel like some of the clothes are maybe a little too out there for some people. I guess that's always just been my fear when creating, but lately I've been able to find my people and the people who really appreciate my clothes and are daring enough to wear them. I would say I have two top favorite pieces. I had this white deer leather. It was huge. It was about this big, and I tie-dyed it, and it came out so beautiful and bright, and I used it to make different kinds of regalias. And I really want to do that more. I want to pursue more of that. But leather's so expensive, right? Especially white leather. Yeah. So it'd be cool to get a grant or something for that. And then I also made this rawhide corset. You know the material that drums are made from? Mm-hmm. I made a corset out of that. Okay. And that was really, really nice and different. And the business side of the art is something that I used to really stress about. And it would really kind of stifle my creativity, because I used to view it in a way where, like I always undersell myself, or not charge enough for my stuff, or feel uncomfortable handling money, or things like that. But I had to really change the way that I view the business side of my art practice, and be comfortable with money and be comfortable with charging what it's worth. And so the business side has, for me, come a long way. I tend not to stress about it too much these days, and I tend not to stress about, if it's gonna sell or not. I don't create things to sell. I create things because I want to get them out of me, and then when people do buy them, that's just amazing. Yeah. I do go to events, and I vend, and I sell online, and I also sell in the Neqotkuk art studio. Nice. And as well at Bellwether in Fredericton. Okay. It's a thrift shop. Okay. They do consignment and local art. I've matured a lot as an artist, and I feel like when you're first getting out there, you're so worried about what people will think, and you're so worried about if people will like it or buy it, but now I feel like I've let all of that go, and as an artist I'm just able to just create for the joy, for the peace of it, and that's been really rewarding to me, and from that a lot of opportunities have come. The balancing has been really helpful, since now I have a house and I'm able to have my studio space set up in my home. So I can have my kids here on their YouTube shows while I'm working with my headphones on so I can focus. But the balancing actually hasn't been an issue at all. Yeah. And I'm so grateful to have, the nature, the abundance of nature around me. I can go outside and make a fire for my kids and sew while I'm sitting there, or bead. And there are definitely pros and cons to it. Especially when maybe I want to leave my studio a certain way and head out, but it's in my house, so I kind of want to keep it a little tidier or more organized. And sometimes too, when I just want to be in the zone, maybe the dishes are stacked up and I'm like, ugh, stop staring at me. Creative blocks usually come along when I'm putting too much pressure on myself to create. Say there's an upcoming event or something, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't have any inventory. Like, what am I gonna do? And so when I'm feeling a creative block, I usually just don't work at all. I don't do any artwork. I just go outside and submerge myself in nature and just kind of come back down to earth, and then it flows freely. It's kind of a process, but most of the time I'll feel inspired by my time outside, or that quiet time in nature will give me time to think and just kind of create in my head first, I guess. And then so after that time, not long after, I will come back in and create. If I'm not feeling creative, I'll still be creative in other ways. Like the signs that I'm making right now. Like I said, if I'm not feeling like sitting there and drawing or sitting there and sewing, I'll go out and do things with my hands and, you know, saw the wood or make a fire and physically do things, and that is a way of creating as well. Don't worry if you don't know anything about sewing, because I didn't know anything about sewing when I first got into fashion design. When I got accepted, I didn't even know how to hand sew. So, I mean, that's what you go to school for, is to learn.
Right.
So if you're interested in getting into fashion design, don't worry if you don't know anything yet, or you don't know all the top designers. Like I don't really follow all of that when it comes to what's in and what's out. And so if you are someone who is interested in it, definitely look around and look at the schools, because I was really shocked to find out that there was a fashion design program in Fredericton. Talk to people, make mentors. That's always great. Your peers, maybe, if they're into those things already and you want to learn about them, pick their brain, reach out to people in the community. Even if you just want to learn your culture and your teachings, it's always good to reach out to people, and there's always mentors there. And the great thing about growing up on the res and growing up with such a great community is everyone is so willing to help one another. And I just think that's such a resource, that it's such a great resource that not everyone grows up with. And we have these awesome programs where they're constantly teaching new things, and attend those programs. You know, try different things, try new things, because you might really end up really liking it. It might make you money.
Right.
There's lots of stereotypes being an Indigenous fashion designer. When I first got into it, I don't know how many times I heard, "Oh, so you bead?" I graduated 2015, and I just learned to bead this year. Like, I didn't think I would like it, but I enjoy it. But that's a big stereotype, is people think, "Oh, you make regalia," or "Oh, you bead." Those are the only two things that you can be if you're an Indigenous fashion designer. I think that kind of breaking those stereotypes and creating different pieces, or maybe creating a piece that doesn't even look like Indigenous piece or something, you know, it's still a piece designed by an Indigenous fashion designer, so it's still an Indigenous piece. I have been able to overcome people's opinions, but they never really got to me. When people would say these things, I'd like, "No, I don't know how to bead," or, you know, I would politely, but they never really got to me in the sense that I let it affect my work. Yeah. And I think people's opinions mostly nowadays are, "You should be doing this," or "You should be doing that." And that's really nice, that's really great advice, but I just want to do what I want to do, and I want to create my work and not think about those outside voices, or not let those affect me. I don't focus on trends. I couldn't tell you what's trending right now. I do tend to favor a lot of what I like, obviously, because it's what I'm creating. But no, I don't really focus on trends or what's fashionable right now, or I sometimes will get inspired by a piece so much that I'll have to like make my own little version of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'll see like a piece built like, okay, but imagine that, but indigenous.
Yeah.
And then like indigenize it. I kind of just want to reiterate how important not just my culture is to me, but how important it is to keep the culture alive and doing these things like leather making and regalia making, and I also teach workshops on ribbon skirt making, and that is something I do. I prefer to teach people how to make their own ribbon regalia because that is a teaching that they can carry on and they can teach more people, or they can make it for their family. And these teachings in our culture are so important to hold close to us and to keep learning the language. And I think just grounding ourselves and realizing that we're a part of nature. We're not, above it. We're no more important than an ant.
Yeah.
It is a life on this earth, and so are we. So I just think it's so important that to connect, your spirit needs to connect with the earth, and our cultural teachings really help bridge that gap. And I just want to encourage more people to learn more and want to learn more.
Yeah.
Neqotkuk N'Tetli Mikwi Tahasoltipen. Too big we are remembering.
Hey,